Good evening, I'm Mike Marza, and this is a live edition of our digital Diddy update. And what a day it has been. Let's take a live look right outside the federal courthouse in Lower Manhattan, where we see some activity beginning to move around. You see the U.S. Marshals there positioned, and just to your left, you can sort of make out a bit of the microphone where there's a podium set up. In a matter of moments, we expect some of the defense attorneys of Sean Combs to come out and give some comments about everything that unfolded today. So we're talking about lead counsel Mark Agnifilo and Tenny Garagos. We anticipate at least one of them or perhaps both of them talking about what unfolded. It was a mixed verdict today for Sean Combs. Let's show you the 5 counts and the 2 that he was convicted on and then the 3 that he was acquitted on. Right after this came down, you see the moment with him there praying in the middle of the courtroom. And so you have counts 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. He was found guilty of 3 and 5, which is transportation to engage in prostitution. But the 3 most serious counts he was acquitted of. And you saw that picture there, or that sketch of the moment when Sean Combs dropped to his knees and prayed in the middle of the courtroom. A much different scene hours after this, because we quickly learned there was a thought that perhaps Sean Combs could be released on a bail package. The defense attorneys were saying that he could be released on $1 million guaranteed bail with all these restrictions in place. But it was in the 5 o'clock hour that the judge denied that bail request. And so Sean Combs will remain detained in Brooklyn, we believe, until his sentencing, which is now set for October. Eyewitness News reporter Dan Krauth, one of our many team members out there covering this case. He's outside the federal courthouse, as you see it behind him. And Dan, you spoke to some of the family members today, including some of the 7 children of Sean Combs that watched all of this unfold throughout the 8-week trial. Dan?
Yes, Mike, I spoke with his son Christian, who told me he is very happy about today's verdict. He's very thankful for all the support his family has received over the last few weeks. For the course of this 10 or 7-week trial, defense team should be speaking here any moment now. The children just left the courthouse behind me in Sprinter vans to head back to their hotel. Sean Combs was hoping to sleep in his own mansion tonight. Now he's heading back to the detention facility after his bond was denied. The judge citing his history of domestic violence and the nature of today's conviction as to the reason why bond has been denied. But regardless, today's verdict is considered as a win for the defense. He's now facing the possibility of spending years behind bars instead of life behind bars.
As court sketches show, Combs reacted emotionally to the jury's split verdict, first pumping his fist and then falling to his knees in prayer, laying his head on a courtroom chair. As supporters outside chanted for his release, with cameras from around the world watching. After more than 14 hours of deliberation, the jury found Combs guilty of 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution in connection with 2 of his ex-girlfriends. They found him not guilty of the 3 most serious charges, racketeering conspiracy and both charges of sex trafficking.
Yeah, so she's given a thumbs up there.
Combs' mother giving a thumbs up and blowing kisses to the crowd after the verdict.
Hey, King, how are you feeling today?
Good, thank you.
What, are you happy? I heard you say...
One of his sons telling me the family's thankful.
Yeah, I'm good.
What do you think's going to happen next?
Everybody, I want to just say thank you so much.
To his 7 children, he's known as Dad. To the rest of the world, he's a hip-hop mogul and multimillionaire who now faces the possibility of spending years behind bars. He'll be sentenced at a later date.
Having represented Cassie and seen her testimony, I certainly was surprised that there wasn't a conviction on her.
Thanks to jurors. I think the jurors did what jurors do, which is they saw through...
All right, so now we're listening to Mark Garagos giving comments right outside court. Let's listen.
Overzealous, kind of a crazy prosecution, and they did the right thing. And that's why, you know, when people talk about tyranny and fascism and everything else, as long as you've got a jury system that works, that's what separates us from the rest of the world. And Sean is thankful. As a helicopter parent, I couldn't be prouder, and I'll let them talk. I don't want to steal their thunder.
Were you surprised, though, that he was denied bail?
That doesn't really, the bail, I think, is besides the point. He was acquitted of the trafficking. He was acquitted of the RICO. Those were always, I thought, as an observer, a ridiculous use of taxpayer resources. This case was never what it was made out to be. This case was ridiculous in so many different ways, and I'm just thankful that the jury saw through it.
But he's still facing prison time. Is it fair?
Sean is, you know, the interesting thing about prison is it's a timeout, and he's had a lot of time to reflect, and he's in a good place mentally, and I'm proud of him. And by the way, for those of you who may miss it, the defense didn't put on a single witness. The defense tried their case within the prosecution case. And at the end of the day, it's a colossal failure by the prosecution.
Oh, we were just listening to Mark Garagos, and for some context, his daughter is one of the 9 defense attorneys officially representing Sean Combs in this case. Mark Garagos, a well-known attorney in a lot of high-profile cases, has been in the court often, not only watching his daughter, but also counseling some of the other members, as we bring in ABC News legal contributor Shauna Lloyd in just a moment. Shauna, you know, it's interesting because at one point, the judge even said, you got to cool it with what you're doing, Mark, being part of this process, because there were so many attorneys, but clearly he's proud of his daughter. It's interesting to see when we hear from Tenny Garagos, and then if we hear from Mark Agnifilo, the 2 that were part of the 9 of the defense team for Sean Combs, what they make of what unfolded today. But I'll just ask you, because we just left off with the bail there, it was somewhat of a surprise the way the judge was talking earlier in the day during the verdict being read, to then him actually using the closing argument of Mr. Agnifilo against the defense, saying he is, Sean Combs, a risk to society.
Absolutely. The defense had to prove that they fell under an exception. And the 2-pronged test for that exception was that 1, he was not a flight risk, and 2, that he was not a danger to anyone or society itself. And he actually cited back to Mark Agnifilo's closing statement to say, you acknowledge that there was domestic violence. You acknowledge that there was violence from Mr. Combs. And it is those very grounds by which I am determining he is and could potentially be a danger. Therefore, I am denying bail.
And so he will likely return back to that Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, something he did not want to do. In fact, there was a moment earlier in the day when the judge asked Mr. Combs, you know, basically saying, you don't want to return to MDC in Brooklyn, and Mr. Combs shook his head vehemently no. What happens now as we wait for this sentencing, which at last check, I believe, is in October? First of all, he's going to be locked up until then because there's no bail. What do we expect him to get as far as a sentence?
When I look at the sentencing guidelines, when I look at the fact that he has no criminal points on his records, you know, I always said he's going to end up somewhere between 2 and 5 years. We've seen the split of that, right? The defense is closer to the 2 years, and the prosecution is closer to the 3.5 to 5 years. He has no convictions previously criminally, so what we're going to expect arguments about from the prosecution are the aggravating factors. All of the things that they're alleging, the violence, they're alleging that there was influence. The defense is going to put forth all the mitigating factors that they feel are here. The fact that he has no criminal record, the fact that he actually attempted to turn himself in, to which the feds did not allow him. And so we'll see them, and the judge will come somewhere between that. Also remember, we'll get victim impact statements. So just the way these letters came in from Cassie and Deontay Nash, the victims who wish to speak will be allowed to speak at sentencing. The judge takes all of that and then makes a determination.
As we take a look at these counts here, counts 3 and 5, where the convictions came, they're also labeled or known as the Mann Act, correct? And there is a mandatory incarceration as part of that, as the judge pointed out earlier. And before we get to that, we have some video now of Sean Combs' family now returning to their hotel here in Lower Manhattan, as they've been part of this process, many of them inside the courtroom. And do we have audio from what's happening? But what we know to be true is that we heard in Dan's story earlier that there was this celebratory feel, because no doubt about it, the most serious charge, the racketeering conspiracy, which could have landed Sean Combs in prison for life, was an acquittal. And so now moving forward, deciding what the sentence will be, we will wait and see for that. But where did the prosecution, I guess, go wrong in their case, or where did they fail to land their argument for the jury?
I think they failed to land their argument with the RICO charge. That was very clear that is a very sprawling, complicated charge. First, the jury has to find 2 predicate acts. They have to agree on which 2 unanimously. They then have to find that the enterprise existed and that there was this agreement. When we look at the enterprise, who the prosecution alleged that was Mr. Combs, his chief of staff, his army of personal assistants, as well as his bodyguards. By virtue of the definition of what these individuals do, personal assistants, their job is to bring the supplies he asked for. Does that mean they're complicit in what happened in the hotel rooms? That's a bit of a stretch for most people, and I think that's what we see the jury kind of pushing back on, that idea that even though they may have procured the supplies, doesn't make them complicit in what happened behind the doors when they weren't present. And I think that's a very important nuance that I think the jury did get correct on this, on the evidence that we saw at trial.
And then moving forward, too, I mean, the larger sort of view of this, the 30,000-foot view, and we heard earlier in the day some of the comments from Cassie Ventura's attorney and what this particular outcome means to her, and then Jane, who testified under the name Jane during the testimony. But domestic violence, and we know about the Me Too movement, and that certainly was a theme throughout this trial, even in an underlying way. What do you make of what's going to happen with these dozens of civil lawsuits that now Sean Combs continues to face?
Well, I will tell you, had there been a guilty charge on the three bigger charges, the trafficking and the RICO, I expect that a lot more of those would continue, because that guilty is going to allow to be translated into the civil trial. Now that it's a not guilty, I expect that some of them are going to peter out. Without a lot of evidence, I think we're going to see some of them. Others will continue on, because we have to remember that the civil burden is significantly lower than the criminal burden. It's only beyond a preponderance of the evidence. And so I expect that some of them will continue on, especially without this automatic forfeiture that would have been due under the RICO. There's no automatic forfeiture under RICO because he was found not guilty of RICO.
All right, stand by. We believe some of the attorneys are now coming out. Let's listen to what they have to say right outside court as we have a verdict in the Sean Diddy Combs trial. Let's hear from the defense team.
It's not a party till we're all here.
All right, so as we prepare, you see Mark Ignifilo and you see Tenny Garagos.
Yep.
We just heard from her father a moment ago, but Tenny was one of the main counsels for the defense team, a team of 9, and let's hear from Mr. Ignifilo.
Thank you all for being patient. Am I speaking loud enough? You all can hear me okay? All right. Today's a great victory. It's a great victory for Sean Combs. It's a great victory for the jury system. You saw that the Southern District of New York prosecutors came at him with all that they had. They're not stopping, but one thing stands between all of us and a prison, and that is a jury of 12 citizens. And we had a wonderful jury. They listened to every word, and they got the situation right, or certainly right enough. They acquitted him of the sex trafficking, which he was absolutely innocent of. They acquitted him of the racketeering conspiracy that he was absolutely innocent of, and all of the components to it. The kidnapping, he was innocent of that. The arson, he was innocent of that. The obstructing justice, he was innocent of that. And that is no longer just me saying that. That is the verdict of our jury. So today's a great day. Today is a win. Today is a victory of all victories for Sean Combs and our legal team. And I want to say one thing. There are very few people around whom a legal team could coalesce and become one. And Sean Combs is that person, and we are all blessed to be part of it. And I am now done speaking to you, and I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Garagos.
All right, I first want to thank my client, Sean Combs, for trusting us, myself and everybody here, this incredible dream team that he put together. Without him, we would not have been able to do this. He is incredible, and I want to thank him. I want to thank the jury for putting such great care into this case. They came early every single day, and I want to thank them, as I said in my opening, standing between all of us and the drastic consequences of the criminal convictions of sex trafficking and RICO is a jury of our peers. And I thank them. I want to thank the judge, and I want to thank, despite the terrible conditions at the MDC, I want to thank the good people who worked there, who ensured that we had sufficient amount of time to prepare for trial. It is extremely difficult to prepare for a federal case in the conditions at the MDC, and they did everything they could to make that happen. I want to thank them. I also have been saying this since the beginning of this case. Sean Combs has not sexually assaulted anybody. I've been saying this for months, We've said it with each lawsuit that came out, and today that was proven true. The media got it wrong about Sean Combs every single day for nearly 2 years. I ask that for every time you guys see a civil lawsuit, criminal complaints or criminal indictments, you actually take a look and analyze these and see whether or not these are actually going to stand up in a court of law, because today they did not. He has not sexually assaulted anybody, certainly hasn't sex trafficked anybody, and the jury found that today. Thank you. I am now going to pass this over to Mr. Steele.
Good evening. Good evening. I want to thank the ladies and gentlemen to my right and my left. There is not a better group of honest and ethical, hardworking, and zealous lawyers, and I especially wish to thank Mark and Tenny for allowing me and everyone else to come together. On behalf of my family, myself, I wish to thank you all for being here and writing truthfully about a man wrongly charged with most of the crimes, and that we all must remember that allegations are nothing. And I'd like to thank Sean for letting me be here. Thank you all. God bless you.
What did your client want to say when he raised his hand?
Thankfully, in our country, we have a right to a jury trial. And thankfully, Mr. Combs took that right. He actually battled for his freedom, for his innocence. He did it. And a lot of times, you know, people are too afraid to do it. And he did it, and we're so happy that he did. We're proud of him. We are completely honored that he put his faith and his trust in us to fight for him. Today is a major win to show what the system can do. We appreciate and we're so thankful to the jury. Thank you to the court. Thank you, New York. It's been a pleasure being here and fighting in your district. Thank you so much. And listen, we appreciate the media. We do. There was a lot of reporting on the accusations. There was a lot of reporting on the indictment. Please report just as vigorously on the acquittal of these counts, please, because that's also the right thing to do. Thank you.
Oh, sure. Good afternoon, good afternoon. So first of all, I want to thank this wonderful team behind me. I am so happy that they allowed me to join it. I would like to say that I've done a lot of trials, but this is probably the most special one to me. And most importantly, I want everyone to know the job is not done yet. We're not finished. The job is not done yet. And so I want to, again, thank Mark, Tenny, and the rest of these wonderful lawyers behind us. They did a fantastic job. And like those before me have said, our system, the jury system, is important. We need good people to serve on juries. We need good people to come and say a person is not guilty. Take that courage to do that. It's okay. We want you to serve on juries. This particular jury was a special jury. It was fantastic. It listened. It paid attention. It put the nonsense to the side. It put the distractions to the side and came to a lawfully good, just conclusion. Juries are important. Juries are important. But more important than that, I think, is people wanting to be on juries. So for all of you all listening, for all you out there in the public, please accept the call, become a juror, and do the right thing. Thank you very much.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
It is such a privilege to be a part of this legal team, this amazing legal team, and to represent Sean Combs. And this is a reminder to everyone, I hope, about the flaws in the criminal justice system, and for everyone to take a second look when the government charges people with crimes, and especially when the Southern District of New York does here. And so I hope everyone takes that seriously. And we take this as an enormous victory and win. This is a huge win. He was acquitted of sex trafficking, acquitted of RICO conspiracy, and he will be able to sleep well at night knowing that. Okay, thank you to everyone. I appreciate you. What did you think about the bail decision?
Jason, guys, can any of you?
All right, so we were just listening to some of the defense attorneys, the huge team that Sean Combs assembled from all over the country, and Mark Agnifilo calling this a victory of all victories, and you can see why. 3 most serious charges, acquittals, despite the convictions on count 3 and count 5. I want to get to Shauna Lloyd in just a moment, but let's go to Darla Miles. She spent the Okay, so we're not going to go to Darla Miles. She was in court with you many of the days, Shauna, as we come back in studio to you.
Yes.
So Darla was there, you were there, watching this all unfold and play out. First of all, what do you make of the relief that you can see on the faces of the Sean Combs team?
I mean, I'm not surprised. I expect that they would have relief. This particular district has a very high conviction rate when it comes to these RICO cases. So the fact that they feel this relief is expected. I think they've worked very hard on this case. There was a lot of information. There were terabytes of data that they were working on to get through this, because as we know, most of it was in text messages, phone calls, emails that span over 15 years. So that's really significant.
Let's go to Darla Miles now, because you spent many days with her inside court. And Darla, I know you were talking to some of the people close to Sean Combs. You just heard the attorneys there as well. What do you make of how it all unfolded and what you've heard today?
Well, you know, it's become a pretty tight-knit group on the 26th floor the entire 2 months of this trial. As you know, seating was limited for both the public and the press, and so you get to know everyone, the defense attorneys, the prosecutors, members of the family. And so the family, initially, they were preparing for Sean Combs to be released on bail and walk out of the front door today. So they were certainly surprised that that didn't happen, and so was Sean Combs. So when that decision, the ruling was issued by Judge Arun Subramanian, the look on his face was kind of like he blew out air, you know, like it was a shocker. It was almost like he said shocker, but he didn't say it out loud. Then he started looking back and forth at his attorneys, like he was waiting for them to say something. And they were intently listening to the ruling, so they could, of course, make any types of objections and appeal to that. So what happened is then his attorney went through a lengthy explanation. He kind of backdoored his way into a bail argument, arguing why he should still be released on bail. And as Shauna has been saying, his own words throughout the trial, Mark Agnifilo saying they concede, they admit there was domestic violence. Those were some of the reasons why he was not granted bail. Now, at one point when Mark Agnifilo was going on and on, you know, it was like it was a challenge for him to land the plane in this argument. He was kind of arguing, you know, after preparing all day, then thinking that he couldn't argue, and then doing so. Sean Combs started raising his hand, like he was getting frustrated because he wanted to speak for himself. He was raising his hand as if he wanted to speak. At one point, it seemed like the judge was going to allow him to speak, but then after the prosecution spoke and gave their reasons why he should not be released on bail, and his attorneys surrounded him, the attorneys that we just saw, Nicole Westmoreland, Brian Steele, Mark Agnifilo, they kind of centered around him to say, calm down, let's just keep this in order. So after court was dismissed this afternoon, you saw Mark Agnifilo triumphantly, the same way we just heard him, addressing the family, addressing the two pews, 2 rows of family members, his children and mother sitting in the front row, friends and family, his sister, the mother of his other 2 children in the back row. And he was just giving them a pep talk saying, listen, this is a good day. We're going to get through this. This is the first time we beat the Southern District in the Southern District's backyard. This is the first time they've lost on a racketeering charge. You can hear little claps and applause from the family. So he reassured family members that the largest part of the lion's share of this battle is over, you know, of course, with the sex trafficking and the RICO charge. Now, if you want me to get into this morning, as you mentioned when we first got into the show, Mike, is that moment when Sean Combs, it was like the adrenaline stopped and like the air came out of the back when he collapsed in prayer. It was after the entire morning proceeding was over, he realized he had been acquitted on the most serious charges, and he just collapsed in his chair and just sat there for a moment, meditating, praying. Everyone got still, the courtroom got still, his family got still. They nodded their heads, and then he again gave them a pep talk saying, listen, we're going to get through this. At that point, they thought he was going to go home. He was thanking jurors as they left the courtroom. He was looking at them, thanking them. None of them made eye contact with him. They did not return eye contact, because if you remember, they were admonished early on in the trial that Sean Combs should not be making eye contact with the jury, and the jury should not be making eye contact with Sean Combs. Still, they held true to that even after they rendered their verdict. And he leaned over and gave Timmy Garagos a kiss. They were high-fiving. It was a football huddle. It was like they won the Super Bowl. So lots of it, energy with Sean Combs, his family, the defense team. Disappointed, though, he will not be walking out of jail tonight.
Darla Miles, a huge thanks to you. Just incredible work painting the picture for us, because we couldn't have cameras inside the federal courthouse and inside that courtroom on the 26th floor. We felt like we were there because of your reporting, so we appreciate that. And Shauna, bring it back into the studio to you. And when you see the defense team there, and they were all taking photos as Darla was talking, this is a moment of celebration for them. They talked about the first time that the Southern District has faced a RICO loss in what they bring, and we know their conviction rate is over like 90% or something like that with their cases that they bring. But I'm curious, because there was sort of a nod, and people have made this comparison just on the hype aspect and the entertainer aspect of the O.J. Simpson trial. Completely different cases, clearly. Not suggesting they're related at all, but just the interest and the hype. And you heard the word dream team, or the phrase dream team, uttered there from one of the attorneys on the defense team. In the legal world, what do you make of what he assembled and how they were able to execute this win for the defense?
I mean, he assembles an amazing group of attorneys. Several of them I know very well. They are fantastic attorneys who care about their clients, and they are committed to justice. So he has an ensemble cast. But what they really did is when you're facing these kinds of charges, they got all of the charges with life sentences acquitted. That is a win for a defense attorney. The transportation for prostitution, we know that he's been convicted of that. He will be sentenced and serve time on that. But the fact that he is not facing a life sentence is a win for this defense team. And that is why they are so excited.
And of course, people may be watching this and saying, well, it's Sean Diddy Combs. He has all the means in the world. He was on the Forbes list at one point, super high, maybe even at the top, billionaire, hip hop mogul and all of that. So he could afford to assemble the best legal minds in the country, one would say. We do have new sketches that you're seeing here of the moment when Sean Combs was denied bail. And as we move forward now to the sentencing that we expect to be in October, how does it play out with, and again, you talked about perhaps what he could be sentenced to, but how does that process play out? He's going to be moved back to the MDC. Does anything change for him? Does he get moved to a different cell while he's waiting for sentencing?
Nothing's going to change for him before sentencing. Now, once he has his sentencing hearing, we'll hear arguments from the prosecution, from the defense. The prosecution is going to put forth aggravating factors. The defense will put forth mitigating factors. We'll have the pre-sentencing report. We'll also have victim statements as well, impact statements. Once the judge hears all of that, then we'll actually know what his sentence is. And because there's 2 counts, the judge has to make a determination on whether he will run those sentences consecutively or whether he'll run them concurrently. And to your point that Sean Combs can put together a dream team, but I will say the point that Xavier Donaldson made is what I say to people all the time. For the people who cannot afford a dream team, what stands between you and the justice system is a jury. And that is why we ask people to answer those jury summons and to serve on juries, because they are the last wall between the justice system and most of our defendants.
When you think about this jury in particular, 8 men, 4 women from all over the area, really, I mean, all over New York, in the sense of this area, this region, the Southern District, and you had somebody in their 30s all the way up to in their 70s, and they were able to come together relatively quickly.
Exactly.
A little less than 14 hours of deliberation to come to this conclusion. I can't thank you enough for your perspective on everything that's played out over these past 8 weeks. It certainly was fascinating to see how the process played out, and now we wait to see what he is sentenced to. Shauna Lloyd, thank you.
Been a pleasure.
We're going to recap everything that unfolded in the Sean Diddy Combs case. ABC News will have a special tonight. It is called Verdict, the Diddy Trial. And we'll take a closer look at the charges, the pivotal courtroom moments, and of course, what comes next for Sean Diddy Combs. And when there are updates as we approach sentencing in the fall, and for all the recaps of everything that we have covered over the past 2 months, you can always check that out right here at ABC 7 NY.